Hey everybody, welcome to that was such a lame intro, but let's keep it. Welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I am one of your hosts, Decon, and I am here with a very savage
SOS, who's also very sick. So I apologize right now.
SOS. So we've got a interesting last minute case here.
Yes, we do. And it was your case. I'm glad you brought it up. We did talk about it on my other podcast, but this one's really fascinating.
So what can you tell us what we're talking about today? I'm just gonna oh well
Yeah, so it's called the Cecil Hotel, and a lot of people have probably heard about it kind of in passing on these haunted, shows and whatnot. And I know the Dude and Broad show, Ghost Adventures have
Ghost
been there.
Adventures.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey
yeah.
bro.
But dude and bro.
Hey bro. Dude,
So
bro.
it has a very dark past, a very dark history. It's a hotel in Los Angeles. And when I was researching this for the other podcast, I'll tell you what, it's kind of fascinating how dark it is. And maybe every hotel has these kind of pasts. It's a big one. And I'm going to show you a picture of the hotel. And bear with us, guys, because this is the first time I am sharing my screen. So, can you see it?
No.
Oh, wait. Here we go. Can you see it now? This
Maybe.
this is
Yes. Okay. Yes, I see it.
yes. Okay.
Yes.
This is the Cecil, and it is
What
it's
a
really
dump.
large. Actually, it is not. And I'm going to show you another picture of it. Let's see. Hopefully, yep, there it is. And it'll come up here in a second. It was quite beautiful inside.
Yeah, very luxurious. I was just
Um,
talking smack because of the
Yeah,
history.
yeah, yeah. It's actually a beautiful hotel, and it's many floors. I forget how many floors, but um I don't know if it's open right now, but it's been undergoing renovations. And it's kind of in a seedy area of Los Angeles at this point. Like there's a homeless encampment right up next to it now. So that's kind of unfortunate because the hotel itself, it's really not in a bad location, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, some of the dark history of this hotel is Richard Ramirez, right?
Ooh, Richard
Yeah, y'all know
Ramirez.
about him. Why don't you go ahead and talk about him?
All right. So, Richard Ramirez was a serial killer who, man, see, and there's so much on him. So, one of the first thing that people notice is his teeth. But, but Richard,
Yeah, yeah.
but as you know, as gruesome as his teeth were, people always found him to be uh charismatic when he had this like when he was talking to people, maybe you didn't notice the teeth, maybe you didn't. But you kind of had this whole thing where like, you know what? There's something off about this guy, but I feel okay, you know. And and with him, people got to oh man, see, how do I put this? Okay, so he could be in a crowd and you wouldn't think he's weird. He wouldn't stand out. But instead you were maybe drawn into him a little bit, especially if you're a woman. You'd be like, this guy is very
Spooky.
very yeah, very interesting feller. Um,
Well, explain
he
who he was, so for people who don't know, right?
the Night Stalker.
Yes. Serial rapist and murderer
Yep,
in
serial rapist
LA.
and murderer.
Yeah.
He fit under the persona of what they called he was the predator stalker. So he was a guy that mentally and psychologically saw people as prey. Like he was a legitimate predator where he would see a woman and he would follow her and immediately he would enter this thing in his brain where he's like, I have to basically murder this person, and a lot of people they have different opinions about him. They're saying, well, he was just psychotic. Some people said that he was possessed because of the way that he behaved. They say you can look into his eyes and just see a void, but it wasn't alarming. Like you could talk to him and be like, whoa, something is so dark about this guy. Like his eyes basically led to nowhere, but it wasn't scary. So people again, weren't alarmed by his presence. And if you were a woman, you might want to spark a conversation with this guy, but then later he would
Mm.
go into your house.
Well, and I think he also killed husbands too, right? He
Yep,
broke into homes
he broke into the
also that
homes.
had couples.
Yep, slit the throats of the person, and what I hate that he would rape the women,
Yeah.
and but then when he would commit these killings, the way that they specified the slayings were that there was rage in it, but precision, because when he would slice somebody's throats, they say that it would almost decapitate the woman. How much force was behind,
Mm.
that slice. So
Yeah,
then he would climb out the window, and
mm.
then he would move on. And he did this for a while until he was finally caught. Um, while he was in prison, he started getting letters from women, which saw his.
That's a whole other
Yes,
show
that is a
because
whole that's a whole nother show. But what I want to
there's
say,
something wrong, ladies, if you're writing to men in prison like that.
but that what I was getting to there, SOS, was that when he was finally caught and his picture was put, on TV and people could see him, they put pictures of him on the billboards. A lot of women said that they
Yeah.
were drawn by his eyes. They were drawn in and they wanted to converse with him. They wanted to talk to him. They wanted to get a hold of him. So,
It's that nurture thing that a lot of women have, like, oh, I can change him.
oh,
Sorry, honey, but you
I
can't.
I can I
So
can fix him.
I can I can fix this.
No,
Let's move on.
yeah,
So there's another resident of the Cecil, and she became famous in death. So that's the Black Dahlia. She was a resident of the hotel, and she was found just a few miles from the hotel when she was murdered.
yes.
So yeah, so that's Elizabeth Short, and her name became the Black Dahlia. So a famous Hollywood death, and then it's also was nicknamed, interestingly enough, the Suicide,
Yep.
by the long-term residents. So the hotel was not just a hotel; like the upper floors had permanent apartments, and a lot of hotels in LA do that. So you'll have hotel rooms on the lower floors, and then the upper floors are condos or like penthouses, or there's suites that are permanent.
It was like
And
having a luxurious apartment for
yeah, I mean, hotels in New York do this, hotels all over the place, right? Because um, mm, living space is a premium in big cities. So unless you're in the suburbs, so the anyway, it was called the Suicide. That's what it was nicknamed um, by the residents. And in 1931, a 46-year-old guest, W.K. Norton, became the hotel's first documented death by suicide. And then in 1933, weirdly, a 25-year-old truck driver was killed when a large truck drove into the hotel and pinned him against it.
ooh,
That's like Stephen King nightmare stuff, right?
yeah.
Um,
Just bury him in a
so
pet
there was a
cemetery in
lot
the back.
yeah, there was a lot of crazy stuff, but the craziest story of all, right, is Elisa Lamb, and that's where we were going to go with the story. And you wanted to kind of analyze the video, but maybe talk a little bit about who she was and how she came to the hotel.
Okay, so Miss, let's call her Miss Lamb because I think that sounds
Miss
nice.
Lamb.
Miss Lamb.
Yeah.
Miss Lamb was a tourist. She was of Asian descent, and she was Canadian, I believe. And she went to the. She was a happy girl. Everybody. She was bipolar, as some people said, but she wasn't an aggressive, nor was she a she. People wouldn't say that she was somebody that went loopy or psychotic. No, when she would have an episode, she more like closed up and like kept to herself. Um, but generally, she was a very happy girl, very friendly. She would had a great relationship with her parents. But some people say that there was something off about her the relationship with her parents, but she always made sure that while she was traveling, she would call them every day at the same time and kind of happily like tell them basically her adventures of the day. and she loved people. So when she would have a conversation with her parents about a person, she was a people watcher. She was like, "Oh, I was watching this lady. She was blah blah blah. You know, I would just enjoyed watching her. Do this. Yep, there she is." So generally, she was a very happy girl, and she stayed in this hotel, and her parents didn't receive a phone call. She called every day, same time, and then one day they didn't get a phone call. So they thought this was strange, and they wanted to. They basically called the police because something is wrong, and they're not gonna file a missing persons case because somebody didn't call you at this time. So they were just kind of like, well, she's fine. She's just got too excited, blah blah blah, and they're saying, well, she's on medication, she's on this, she's on that, and they're like, well, we'll notify the hotel just to kind of, you know, keep an eye on her or something, So time passes, and though she was discovered, she had died. Uh, People discovered that she was dead because, man, this is so dark. So,
It's pretty gross, yeah.
so the people in the hotels, in the rooms, were showering and the pressure was off. Somebody said that the water tasted off. Some people said that when you turned the water on, the water ran black. And then finally it cleared. Somebody said that the water had a foul smell. You would shower, turn the shower on, and then the heat would come on, and then this putrid smell would come. So finally they sent a maintenance person upstairs to go figure out, like, all right, let's see what's going on with the pipes. And then they find in the big water tank, they find her body. She's naked. Her different accounts say that either her clothes were neatly folded, other people say they were just discarded. But the point is that,
Yeah, and I read a count that the clothes were in the water tank with her.
yes, and that was another thing that somebody said, that the clothes were in the water tank. So, but then again, I mean, the person that found her, I mean, the last thing they're going to be paying attention to is like how the clothes were folded, if this is going on, when that person gave an account, of what's going on, because there's a dead girl floating in a tank. And
Yeah. And interestingly enough, when you go back and you read like some of the police reports on this, and I reread them again today, was that there wasn't a way into the tank. The
yep,
tanks were 8 feet tall.
yep,
And in order for the maintenance guy, so the access to the roof was locked, but you could easily bypass that through the fire escape and get up there. And they used tracking dogs to try to find her when she went missing, and they lost the scent at the window by the fire escape. So she could have climbed out the fire escape and up. Fine. But the tanks were 8 feet tall.
yep,
And they had a really heavy lid. And if
yes,
you saw the picture of Elisa, Miss Lamb, she was small. She was a delicate girl, and I don't see her shimmying her way up an 8-foot tank without a ladder. And there were no way up onto the tank without the maintenance ladder that they had to bring up there to look in the tank. And I don't see her moving that lid.
yeah. Those I've been in places where those antique water reserve tanks are there. The modern ones actually have air. They go by air pressure to lift them.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you have two guys lifting it, and at first you need a tool to get it up there just to pop it open because of the amount of pressure. Because you got to think it's filled, and the pressure in the tank is what pushes the water down. So
Right.
it's got a pressure. So first you got to unscrew
Right, a
these
vacuum.
things. Yep, just
Yeah.
vacuum. So you got to unscrew these things, relieve some of the pressure. You take a tool, get it in there, push it up until you hear the pop, and then somebody else grabs the other side, and you grab that side, and you both push it up. So,
Yeah.
so for a lot of people saying, well, she could have done it, like, trust me, I don't think she could have. So
Without help.
without help, without
Without
tools,
help.
without help, and the interesting thing is that some people say that the lid was closed when she was in there. Um, but and some people say the lid was open. And the thing,
Right.
but what I have to say is, if the lid was open, there would be no water pressure in general, because remember, the lid needs to be closed to generate that force to push the water down through the whole hotel. If it was open, they would have immediately been able to detect, like, okay, the lid's open because again, there's no water pressure, and look, the lid's open. Let's go
Right.
look in there. And if it was closed, but not sealed, again, same issue. There's not enough pressure to get the water going. So it's just, man, it's just an interesting case and it's still open because people are trying to solve that. Like, what happened? Um,
Well, on the autopsy, some people said, well, she took a lot of drugs, but she had some prescription medications. She had Sudafed, and I think she had Tylenol in her. No big deal.
yeah,
She didn't have any illicit drugs. She had a .02 alcohol content, which meant probably 1 or 2 drinks before the time of death. Not many.
or the Sudafed or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, something could have,
Yeah,
medication could have, I don't know what she was on. But it doesn't appear that there wasn't a sexual assault. Um it's such a question as to how, and they said when they went to retrieve her body, when they found her, that the hatch itself wasn't big enough for her to for them to get in and get her.
yeah,
They had to actually cut it bigger. Like it was just big enough for a water
yeah.
pipe hatch. It wasn't a manhole. It wasn't big
Yep,
enough.
you can't.
So how the hell did she get into this
Well,
tank?
the thing is, it can open higher, but again, like I said, you need a second person to help you actually push the thing open, and you need a tool.
Oh, because they made it sound like they had to actually cut the thing bigger to get her out
I
because it
think.
wasn't big enough.
Well, I think that they didn't
Okay.
want to damage the body, so they probably ended up having to cut
Oh, that
the
makes sense.
yeah. So, but yeah, you can open it
Yeah.
all the way, but again, one person, a tiny person without any tools, like that's not gonna happen.
So let's go through the video. You wanted to kind of walk through the video, and there's some security video of her in the hotel.
Yeah. So
And I watched it, and so let's watch it with our audience, and I kind of want you to walk through it because it is kind of an interesting video. So I'm going to pull it up here. This is on YouTube.
yeah,
Let me know when you can see it.
yeah, I can see it now. People talk about how she was probably under, you know, hallucinogenic drugs, but again, the toxicology proved that that's not real. That's not true. So okay, so she enters the elevator, and one of the first things that you see is that some people will say, like, well, it looks like she was playing a game with somebody. But when you look at the way she enters the elevator, she was kind of like in a rush, but trying to keep it together in a way, if that makes sense. She's not running into the elevator.
Yeah.
She's not, sprinting in there and immediately. No, she comes in. She was walking at a faster pace, but what she does, like, watch her as she comes in.
Yeah, let's go back because it's like she hears something or somebody walking and she peeks back out.
Yeah. Okay. So the way that she's
You know what
pushed.
she's doing right there?
Yeah. Oh,
She's looking at floors, I guess?
yeah. I think that she's looking at floors, but it's almost like she's trying to act normal, if that makes any sense. So yeah, she hears. It
But
sounds
look
like
at this. Like she
she
hears.
peeks and then goes back,
Yep.
almost like she's kind of hoping that somebody's not doesn't know that she's in the elevator. She's now hiding
Right.
because the door isn't closed. That's
Maybe
one of
that's what she was trying to do, is close the door.
so that's one of the
She looks paranoid.
yes. She looks like she's having some kind of a high stress moment, and when you look at a person the way that she's moving, like when she stood up straight really fast, and now your movements are jittery, just like the way she's acting right now, that's a person that has adrenaline running through their body and they're trying to keep it together. So when she noticed that the elevator wasn't closing, what she did was she tried to hide just in case somebody walked by and saw the elevator. It looks like no one's in there. Okay, so right that's the strange part, is that it looks like she might be talking to somebody because she's just standing out there, but again, you don't see anything.
I don't see any shadows of anybody.
But that now when she enters the elevator, now you kind of see like the way that she's moving her limbs.
She's trying to get those doors closed.
Yeah.
It looks like.
So when a person again, I'm analyzing this so when a person is also really stressed, that energy has to go somewhere. So when you see somebody moving their fingers around, stroking their hair, doing what she's doing right now, is the energy
Mm-hmm.
has to go somewhere, and generally it goes to your limbs. So
Talking to somebody?
well, that's what it looks like. Like she's talking to somebody, but again,
Or
like
she's hallucinating.
there's nobody there. But I don't think she's hallucinating. Because again, like what would cause her to hallucinate? It's not her condition. At least her parents made it sound like she doesn't have hallucinations, but it does
No,
look.
it made it. She has like depressive issues and stuff like that, but nothing that.
So
And from the paranormal aspect, you got to wonder: is she interacting with something that we don't see?
okay, that's what I was gonna. I'm not get at, but what I was gonna say is, so you see her get out there and she's really nervous, and then she's in, like, okay, so when you put it back to where she's talking, well, when she first steps out,
Mm-hmm.
immediately her whole demeanor
Want me to go
changes.
back?
Yeah, go back to where she jumps out of the elevator the second time.
So right here,
Yeah, right there. Some people say she's smiling. She doesn't look like she's smiling. She has a straight face.
she doesn't look smiling to me. It
No.
looked like a grimace almost.
Yeah, almost like a nervous grimace.
Uh-huh.
So look, she steps out, and her again, the adrenaline and trying to keep it together, it goes to your. That's what causes the jittery movements, you know. And then when she steps out, and you see her begin to move her hands, that looks like to me that looks like somebody that's extremely nervous, but then she kind of relaxes. So like her whole
Uh-huh.
personality changes.
Now her hand goes up to her head.
Yep, her
So
hand
she's
goes up.
messing with her hair.
Yeah, and again,
And that's a nervous thing.
that's a nervous
And I
tick.
do that.
Yeah, when you're
Yeah.
nervous, you scratch your head, you twirl your hair, because again, the
Yeah.
energy has to go somewhere. Okay, so now she's completely different. Now she looks
There it
relaxed.
almost looked like she was smiling, but I couldn't tell. It's like, was it a smile or was it a I'm so stupid, I need to just get out of here kind of moment, you know?
Yeah, well, no, I think that would, and again, I gotta kind of go with the paranormal for a minute there, almost like a possession, because her whole demeanor is now
That's
different.
interesting.
She's more relaxed. You know, there she's
Right there, she's interacting with
yeah,
something.
she's interacting with something, and now her yeah, that's so weird. And now you see like her whole
She's
personality
completely
change.
changed.
Yep, and
Yep.
now her movements are not as jittery; they're more smooth. Like now she's relaxed.
And it almost like she's telling a story to somebody.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
That's
odd,
interesting.
such an odd video because yeah, now she's is that the man?
We have a ways to go here. We have another minute on this video, so let's play it
Yeah,
through
yeah.
and see what
It's
I don't remember. Does she come back into the elevator?
that I don't think so. I think the elevator remains empty. Maybe.
Oh no, it closes. So let's go up here.
Yeah.
We
So the
don't see
elevator.
her again,
So
and
the
there it
elevator
closes,
finally closes. The elevator stayed open the whole time.
and then it opens again. Interestingly enough, with no one there, which is fine. She pressed a whole lot of buttons, and maybe this thing is starting to catch up with itself.
Yeah, but the same floor.
And then it closes again. Never move. It doesn't appear to have moved. I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't tell. We can't tell if it moved or not. It
Well,
could have just opened on another floor.
are those buttons not? I thought those buttons lit up like when it's on a different floor.
Yeah, who knows on this thing, right? Sometimes they do.
Um.
That looks like a different floor to me.
Okay.
That I don't know. I can't. We go back. Let's
But
go
what I
back to
see
the
in the
last.
video is somebody that's
Look at
frightened.
the wall color. The wall color here
Oh
is
yeah,
black. The
and the
wall
other one's
color
red.
here is red.
Red rum.
So red
Um.
rum.
So yeah,
Anyway,
so analyzing that video. I'm looking at it through somebody going through a type of. I'm not even gonna call it combat stress. But it looks like it simulates a lot of that. You're coming in, you're trying to keep it together, um, and that's what. But she was extremely nervous. She was walking fast. She enters the elevator. She looks really, really stressed. Then she tries to hide, and she does the nervous thing where you're moving your finger. Somebody that has, for example, autism, you do
Oh
see
yeah.
that when they're excited, their fingers tend to move kind of like the way she was moving. And she goes out and she's talking to somebody, but then her jittery movements now become smooth, like they have now a rhythm, and her shoulders will actually drop. Like her shoulders are no longer up here. She's not moving now.
Mm-hmm.
She's calm. She's enters the elevator kind of, and then you see like a completely different personality. Like, okay, this. So could there be possession? I don't know what's going on. That's it.
Possession is, boy, is that rare. It's so rare.
Yeah, but this is a
Um,
rare case. I mean, look where they found
this
her.
is a rare case. It's just that normally possession, I have to say, possession starts minor, and then that, I mean, it crescendos up, but it takes a while. But maybe she's had bouts of possession. If it's possession, maybe she's been battling this on and off for months or years. Who knows if it was possession? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Usually there's that mark, and she did have it looked like from our perspective a personality shift, but who knows? She could also have been, and we've talked about this on my other show. How many people who are diagnosed with mental illness are not mentally ill? They're incredibly gifted mediums, so they're seeing people that we can't see on a daily basis.
yeah, and do you think she was seeing Richard Ramirez? Um,
I mean, who knows? There's been a lot of death in that
yeah,
hotel.
there's been a lot
Um,
of deaths in that hotel. There's been at least two or three other serial killers in that hotel that stayed there.
Yeah, there was that Austrian guy, and I forget his name, but he was let out of prison, and then didn't he move into the hotel and kept killing women?
It kept killing women, and he killed fi- man, is it a coincidence? He killed women that looked frail, um, because
Oh.
they were easier to control. I mean, and that's one of the things that he had said. He says that you know, frail women or weak women, whatever the hell he ended up saying. So like when you look at her, it's like, ooh, that's a pretty frail looking girl. Um, but then again, could she be having a psychotic episode? Maybe, I don't know, but it doesn't look like any psychotic episode I've seen. Usually, when somebody has an episode of that magnitude, it doesn't go from extremely like manic to calm instantly. It usually goes the other way around. A person's calm and then they have a break and then they're beginning to act really manic. It
Mm,
doesn't, you know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
So, and when
Yeah.
and when somebody's
Yeah.
coming down from that, it takes a while. It's just not like, well, I feel better. Um, Usually it's you're calm and then all of a sudden something triggers it, and uh, and then you have your episode and you could become extremely violent or extremely loud or just break down. But then it takes those levels to come down for you to be like, okay, I'm beginning to feel. You don't instantly go, boom. Now I feel relaxed. Now I feel calm. It's just the behavior is just so weird. And what I find the most interesting for me with the behavioral shift is watching her stress just disappear. Watching all that high, like really high of stress, the way she's moving her fingers and contorting them
Mm-hmm.
to like immediately, like the fingers begin to flow, her hand is just flowing. And the thing for me is her shoulders were high as she was trying to move, and then they just come down. It's almost like a. So,
Yeah. She did seem conversational at the end.
yeah,
I don't know. With We didn't see any shadows. I didn't see
no,
anybody. There weren't casting any kind of shadow around the wall because when we went back and looked, I looked again to see if I saw anything. Um, it's odd. She pressed those buttons enough that maybe the elevator just didn't even know what to do after that. So it stayed open for quite a long time, which is odd. Um,
yeah, because they even when you're in an elevator and somebody's kid comes in and they go to all the buttons, the door doesn't stay open; it closes.
it starts closing right away. Um, so I think, wasn't that the last video of her in the
That's the
hotel?
that's the last video. They questioned the people on that floor, um, has anybody seen this girl? Nope, nobody's seen her. Like the people that were directly like in that where she would have been looking, they asked guests, we're looking for this girl. This girl has anybody? They called people that stayed, in that room. Like, hey, did you see anybody? This girl has been. Nope, nobody's seen her. Nobody's. So if she was interacting with a guest or with anybody else in the whole, nope. People say they didn't see her, that they didn't talk to her. So the whole thing where she was interacting with somebody else that was staying at the hotel, even maybe they lied to the detectives. I don't know, but no one says no one saw her.
When we talked about this before in our other podcast, we were talking about, we went in the direction of energy. Like, are there just places on this planet, and I know there are, just from my research, that everything aligns where negative things happen all the time? Or positive, but those intersections of energy. And could the Cecil Hotel in that maybe, however many square blocks, but could that hotel be at that intersection of, is it just coincidence, or is it, there are ley lines throughout the world that are energy grids? We've seen, interestingly enough, in cases that I've researched, higher percentages of spontaneous human combustion in some of the ley lines in England where they intersect. Odd. So could this be one of those sinkholes of negative energy that's drawn into this hotel?
Could be. I mean, because what are the odds that there was 3 serial killers that were drawn to this hotel?
3
And
serial killers, lots of suicides, the man crushed to death against the wall, the Black Dahlia, all of this stuff happening there?
yeah,
I
and
mean,
also remember that a woman leaped from the hotel room window and killed herself, and then killed the guy that was just walking underneath her.
oh my God, I've forgotten about, I don't,
And
wow.
and people that
I
saw
mean,
it said that, and again, this could be just hearsay, but some of the people that saw it said that the man was walking and he stopped and he was looking around as if somebody was saying something to him, and then the girl landed on him.
or he felt that shift. Like, we feel that, when something's going to happen to us. We can feel it if you're in tune.
Yeah, so
So,
that's what people were saying. People that were across the street, and they're saying that he was just at the right moment when somebody jumped, and then people are like, "Well, was she screaming?" And people said there was no screaming. Otherwise, people would have
she just,
reported the sound. People would have stopped. Everybody would have stopped. But just quietly just jumped, and then a guy happened to stop and look around. Didn't even look up. That's the thing, is people said that he never looked up. Didn't even see it coming. Said that he just stopped and then kind of looked beside him, like as if somebody was calling him or somebody was trying to get his attention. And then the girl landed on him and killed him.
so I haven't watched the Ghost Adventures episode because I've made it a point in my life really not to watch them.
Wait,
But,
Colleen, I'm gonna ruin it for you. Okay, you ready?
okay,
Okay.
they found the devil, right? It's
No,
a portal to hell.
Zach Baggins got affected. Hey, bro, I'm being affected, bro.
Oh
Something's affecting me, bro.
my God,
Why
this.
does everybody call me Scooby Douche? Are you okay?
Oh my God. So I just, anyway, he just brings such a dim light to all paranormal work. He really does. It's just terrible. And it's not a place of jealousy. I wish he was just more respectable in his work, because there are teams out there that do incredible work, and I'm behind them 100%. Not one of them. He's not one of them. But so I have not watched what they alleged went on in their investigation. I am familiar with some of their work in Idaho, and I know for a fact that, gosh, can I get sued for libel here?
Allegedly.
Things were not as what they said in these buildings, because I've been there.
Allegedly, guys.
Allegedly, things were not things were not on the walls, there weren't objects in the rooms, because I've been there. I'd been there before they were there. And it's like, no, that was manufactured for the show. So, allegedly. So I have a hard time with anything they have to say. Do I think this hotel, I don't know if it's open now. I remember it had been closed for a while and they were renovating it. I don't know if it's open now. Um, is there probably paranormal stuff going on? Probably. That much stuff, that much negativity in a building is going to affect things. And it's LA. Come on, it's LA. There's
Yeah.
a lot of drugs and alcoholism and everything there. It's not the happy place everybody makes it out to be. It's just not.
But what's insane is the fact. I know this is supposed to be about Miss Lamb, but you can't talk about this case without talking about the location. I mean, again, like the odds are ridiculous. Three serial killers, the Black Dog, and not just that, but there was a lot of violence around the building, like outside the building. They're saying that
Yes.
whenever there was violent attacks of any kind, it would always happen in front of the hotel. Whether it was back in the day when mobsters ran, whenever somebody was gunned down, they were gunned down in front of the hotel. Um,
Well, and like I said, Skid Row is right up next to the hotel now. So that's not good. That's not a good energy source for anything. Because that's a lot of sorry, I gotta put the dog out.
uh-oh.
Drugs and alcoholism and mental illness and everything else, And
Yeah,
it's just it's what happens. And I don't know what happened to her. It doesn't it looked more paranormal to me than not, but I don't know.
it's a hard one. I mean, that's why there's no case closed on this case. I mean, because even to this day, you have detectives that are looking over this case, and then they're like, "Ooh, like I do not know what to do with this," because they're saying, "Well, how did she get access to the roof?" They're saying, "Well, she went through the fire escape." Um, but again, some of those fire escapes have alarm systems. Um,
Mm-hmm.
have so if she would have gone through the fire escape, there would have been an alarm that was going off because all those hotels now are just you know they want to prevent hotel fires. So if somebody was up there and going through the fire escape, it's for a reason, or there's an emergency, and the alarm would have gone off, and then they would have rushed to the roof, and that didn't happen. They tested the alarm
Yeah.
system, and it works. It's not like the building was so old that it didn't work. They tested the systems, and the systems worked. So the alarm should have gone off. It's just a bizarre case, and
It is. And you know, they've made now some quite a few paranormal movies based on this, right? Dark Water. There was a
yeah,
movie that was filmed in Japan, I think, about a hotel with the same scenario, right? So people have profited greatly on this story of this poor young lady. And I mean, that's going to happen. It's the world we live in, and I feel bad. I know her parents did, I think, try to sue the hotel owners. I think the suit was thrown out,
yep, it was
which is
thrown out.
unusual in California. Usually you can sue anybody for anything.
I think
I
I
feel
think it was due to negligence, or they said it was negligent homicide, whatever they're trying to sue for. Um,
it was just the
but
wrong.
but they couldn't find. Basically, we're scratching our heads. We don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Like everything worked. Everything was It wasn't anything negligent because everything was working. The safety nets that were put in place were online. Everything was it just so the judge didn't know what to do with it.
you cannot protect 100% of the people 100% of the time. And if this young lady did not do this to herself, she was murdered, and that's certainly not the hotel's fault either. So, um, I mean, that's a question that people really don't talk about. Was she murdered? Uh, she couldn't open that hatch by herself, and she couldn't get into that tank by herself. So, if it if you go away from the paranormal, how did she do it? She had to have help because there wasn't a ladder up there that she kicked down on the
Yeah,
roof.
and a couple of things because the murder thing, that has somebody else scratching their heads too, because people will say like maybe she was murdered, and it's like, okay, so how did this murderer get her up there and then drown her, carrying this girl, climbing up there without a ladder, without any type of assistance, opening the hatch with somebody that could possibly be screaming, you know? And people say, well, maybe he killed her before, but there was no signs of
Right.
any type of,
Yeah.
blunt force trauma,
I mean,
strangulation.
other than subduing her and then holding her under, I mean, somehow rendering her unconscious, it had to have been somebody with keys, somebody with ladders, somebody who wasn't seen, going up the hatch to the roof, not the fire escape. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah,
a
but
lot of things that had to come into play and fall right into line for them not to get caught. But if they did it in the middle of the night, nobody's the wiser. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, it's hard because those type of tanks, I've seen them, I've been around them, and they're tall. Um, and they don't have ladders on the sides of them for you to climb up, because a lot of people are like,
Right.
well, maybe he climbed. Like, no, there's no ladder
Well,
for you to
that's what
climb
I'm
up there.
saying. Was it somebody who had keys and a ladder and an access, and then he just cleaned up the crime scene and locked everything back up? Ladder's put away. He goes home. I don't
But the,
know.
yeah, and it's just hard because also there was no signs of like any struggle. There was, if you watch the video of her, she doesn't seem like a person that would quietly go with you. She's not calm in that situation. She looked manic at first. So the whole thing where she quietly followed somebody up there, under a
Right.
threat, she doesn't look like that kind of a person.
No, and she wasn't drugged. There wasn't enough drugs in her system or alcohol to render her unconscious. The only thing is, as a lot of people know who watch true crime stuff, if you're choking somebody, it takes a long time to kill them. It's
Yep.
like 10, 15 minutes, right? Because basically,
Well,
it's not just cutting off your air, it's cutting off your blood supply to your heart and
well,
oxygen, right? So,
well, when you get
but
somebody in a,
my point is though, Decon, that when you choke them, they pass out.
yeah,
And
but
then if you
they're,
stop, they come back. So
yeah,
somebody did that to her.
that's what I was gonna get at, is there's two types of chokes. There's this respiratory choke, and then there's a circulatory choke. When you
Yeah.
get somebody in a blood choke, it's fast. It's 5 seconds. You hold somebody there, they're out like a light. But the moment you let them go, they start
They
coming
come back.
back. They come
Yeah.
back. Um, when you get somebody in a respiratory choke, when you're holding them, it could be 3 minutes, but there's marks because it takes a large amount of force
Yeah.
to cut somebody's air. There was no marks on her. Even with somebody in a blood choke, if you hold somebody once they pass, if they're out, and if you hold them in that position, it it could take, let's see, what is it? So 3 to 5 seconds from the pass out. Brain damage if you hold them for 7 seconds. 12 seconds, they're dead. But by that point, the blood vessels in the neck and in the brain are beginning to burst, and there's evidence that somebody was died that way, and there was no such signs. I mean, they
No, there
checked.
wasn't any signs. There was, other than just the normal, what happens to the human body when it's been in water, immersed in water for 2 weeks,
Yeah,
there wasn't any signs of any other foul play. So,
yeah,
hmm.
it's
It
so
is a
hard.
bizarre case. It is.
That's
When
why
I
we're not.
first read about this case like 4 or 5 years ago, I'm like, what happened? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because how did she do that? How did she do that? I
Yeah,
don't know.
and man, and when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, she was in the water tank. I'm like, well, I guess that makes sense. But then when I saw the water tank, I'm like, no, not these tanks.
Let me see if I can find a picture before we hang up here, uh, so that our viewers can. Okay, so all right, so I am going to share this picture of the water tanks. There's 4 of them up there, which you would imagine for a hotel this size. So it does look like if she made it to the top of the hotel, she could have jumped down onto the top of the water tank.
Yeah, but there would have been prints. on the tank. See, can you zoom in on one of those tanks?
Let me see if I can get to. Oh, okay. Well, trying to
Okay,
find a
that one that has the four of them.
right there.
Yeah,
Can you see that?
yeah, yep. Okay,
Okay.
is there any way to zoom in on that?
Ah,
Okay,
that's
yeah,
about it.
yeah, those are pressurized
But
tanks. You
if
see
she
that?
came down off the top of the roof, she could have jumped down onto the top of the tank.
Yeah, but
But
you're not
lifting the
lifting
lid
that
would
lid.
be hard.
Yeah, and you see
Lifting the
how
lid
that
is,
see that lid how it has a lip almost?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that requires a tool for you to get it up there to break the pressure after you've released the pressures on the sides.
Here you go. Here's the picture of the lids.
Yeah.
So they are big enough for you to get into,
Y-
definitely.
Yeah,
But
but they
like
don't
you said,
yeah.
pressure.
It, they're pressurized and yeah, good luck. That is insane. People that say she could have opened the lid, you have no idea. You're insane. You have no idea what you're talking about. Those run under pressure. You're not opening up that. That's crazy.
Well, it's an interesting case. Is it paranormal? Is it not? Is it murder? Was it suicide? Who knows? It's an interesting case. A lot of creepy movies spawned from this one. Feel bad for her family. You know, they'll never get closure on this, if there
Well,
is such thing as closure after death.
no.
But they'll never know, and that's tough. That's really tough. Um,
Yeah, I mean, and then when you were asking the questions, because the parents, of course they were devastated. And I wonder, I wish there was an interview with them where they ask her, like, why did you pick that hotel? Because of all the hotels in that were either cheaper or they were, like,
Well, the sign on the side of the Cecil Hotel says cheap rates. That was the old, but remember, it was built in 1927, so that was probably painted on there 1927. So it was probably one of the more inexpensive hotels in downtown LA. Downtown LA is not cheap.
no. But then when you
So
see a
she probably
historical,
went to what she could afford as a student.
yeah, but the Motel Sixes, come on. Like,
I don't know if there is one down there. Who knows? And it is such oh, LA is a tricky place. If you've never been, it's a tricky place. It doesn't it's you go in just one or two blocks in either direction and you're all of a sudden in a really, really bad part of town and
yep,
it's scary. So, you're a young lady in college and she was into fashion and design, I believe, and she had her
yeah,
own like blogs and stuff
yep,
and she just seemed like a sweet young girl and she just kind of wanted to experience something different, go down to some good weather because she was up in Canada and I think she
Canada
just wanted
sucks.
to like let's have an adventure. It's too bad she didn't go with friends. It's too bad she didn't have a buddy system. I say that coming from I have been all over the country on my own. So I understand wanting to strike out on your own. But I'm also armed and trained.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What I was gonna say is, well, you are armed, and she's from Canada. I mean, the worst thing that somebody can hit you with in Canada is like a pancake.
Right? A maple leaf.
Yeah, a maple leaf, and it's like, oh, this one's not fully
Yeah,
dry yet.
so
Um,
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I would love to hear from our viewers and see if they have any insight on this, if they caught something different in any of the videos they've watched, because I'm betting you some of our viewers have watched some of this footage and they're like, hey, maybe this happened. I don't know. It'd be interesting. I've talked to a few people. Not many people know this case, which I find
yeah,
fascinating.
a lot of it was
So,
because the hotel at that time still wanted to remain operational, so they kind of tried to. I think for the longest time, they also didn't want the name of the hotel mentioned in this case. I mean,
kind of
which is
hard not
why,
to.
well, yeah, because of the time, but with the whole serial killers thing, at that time when those people were
Oh,
murdered,
yeah.
the hotel shushed everybody and no one knew what hotel. So the odds of these guys landing in that hotel makes it even creepier because it's like it's not like you saw it on TV. It's not
Now,
like
wait a minute. Yeah. I was looking at some different water tanks here, but the water tanks that we saw, I think, were the water tanks in question at the Cecil Hotel. they're the brown ones, because here I'm going to show another video. Somebody showed a picture of some old wooden water tanks, but that was
No,
not a
no.
tank. Here's another picture with the Cecil sign and those tanks. So they were the ones in question. But
Yep.
if she climbed up, there's a picture of that fire escape. If she went up that fire escape, she could have jumped down, gone up the other fire escape to the top of that roof, jumped down on the tank. But then again, getting the tank lid open.
Yeah, how would you open it? I mean, that's an even worse angle to try to open that tank if you were in the bottom.
Yeah, so, but I mean, it was doable. It was doable if she really wanted to do it. I think if you really, really wanted to do it, but who'd want to die that way? I don't know. Of all of the ways to, I don't know.
Maybe. See,
So,
there you're exhibiting those behaviors that she had.
Oh, see, I know. It's like,
the
ew.
thought of
No.
drowning to death.
No,
Not just the thought of drowning.
I did drown, and my parents resuscitated me. The fact of going into a dark water tank, nope. Never, nope.
I thought you were going to talk about the old military days. They called it going black when they drowned you and they brought you back to life in the Navy and the Navy SEALs.
Yeah, no, never was a SEAL, so don't know. But yeah. Anyway, good case. I like this topic. It was, well, I didn't like it,
Well,
but it was an interesting
I don't.
one.
It's interesting, but it leaves me. I'm gonna probably stay up for a long time trying to. How the hell did she? Because it's one of those cases where it'll boggle your mind. You're like, what is going on? How? Okay, if she did this, how would she have done it? And they're like, there's no way in hell she could have done this. So it sucks. I mean, I feel bad for her parents. I feel bad for her friends. Her friends said that she was a really nice, timid girl, and um, they've never seen her behave that way, the way that she's behaving in that video footage. She had a blog, and I guess she also did like videos where she was talking about things, and again, there was no signs of any of any manic behavior. Just a nice girl. So,
Yeah.
anyways, all right, let's close her up. This case sucked. You're all sick people for watching this. I was I was one of your hosts, Decon, here with the very, very elusive
SOS.
SOS. And remember, guys, to always look both ways, especially if you find yourselves on Nightmare Road.